So if somebody says to me, will you lower your fees to get my business? I would much rather the professional say, hey, I understand where you're coming from. We all want to be shrewd in terms of how we spend and invest our money, but you need to know something. We don't negotiate our value to try to win someone's business. I know others do, and they're very transactional. They are the hunter-gatherers. They eat what they kill. That's not us. We focus on the long-term relationship and future pacing where the relationship's going. So I respect what you're saying, but you just need to know that we don't sharpen our pencil to try to get someone's business. We want an accretive alignment of interest, and I just need you to know that right up front. That requires a lot of courage, a lot of conviction, but what a statement that makes and how revealing that is about disarming somebody to say, okay, that's a very interesting philosophy. So, Steve, I'd like you to add to Daniel's comment before about the encounter initially, but also what your thoughts are on that dynamic of having professional scarcity and not grabbing at business just and pressing.
Yeah, I'd agree with Dan. You can, when you're a desperate salesperson, the client on the other side can smell you a mile away. And I was there as a young rep, so I learned the hard way on that one. But it's an interesting take, right? I think it gets back to the beginning of that meeting. So are you setting it up properly where you're sharing the values that you bring, the business and the future picture of what you can build for that client? And if you're doing all those right things and you're asking the right questions, you typically won't get to the point where, now I have to lower my price, or I have to lower my rates, or I'm in that battle with two other players and now it's just, lowest win, lowest bid wins. If you look back at that and you're caught in that situation, it's typically because you didn't do that front end work. But that just might be the cause, that's just not a fit for you. They're not interested in the bigger picture. They're just interested in whatever the lowest rate they can get.
Yeah.
And so, maybe that's just not a fit. And I'd go back to, you always have to kind of create stories. But, the one story that I picked up, one of the interviews that Dan and I did was with a female boxer. And we were trying to tie boxing together with sales. And her philosophy in boxing is that you might hit the mat one day, but you have to get up the next day because you got to fight next weekend. So you have to kind of rebound from those discussions and then pick up and go on and track down that client that has matching values and that you can work with effectively.
Yeah, that's it. And we've all heard the expression "begin with the end in mind." What is the goal? When I talk to a lot of professionals about the concept of client acquisition and the dynamic between stewardship and salesmanship, I often ask them, I say, look, when you meet with a prospective client for the first time, what is your goal? And they'll often say, well, to make them a client. And I say, is it just possible that person knows that? Like, are they coming to this meeting with anticipation or apprehension? Well, there's probably a combination of the two. They're done with their current provider. They've heard good things about you. They like the initial interactions at this point, so there's some anticipation. But there's apprehension, fear of change, fear of the unknown. When somebody really elevates and expands their thinking to understand the dynamic between caveat emptor and caveat venditor, buyer beware, vendor beware. Okay, let's remove the mystery to see if there's some harmony here. You get there by understanding you actually have three goals when you meet a prospective client for the first time. Goal number one, validation. Now, what does that ultimately mean? Well, there's a good chance this meeting is stemmed from an introduction. And there's a good chance that that prospective client is going to go back to the rainmaker, the person who made the introduction, and have a conversation about what transpired. What do you want that person to go back and say to the goose that just laid that golden egg? If they go back and say, wow, you were right, that, you introduced me to a professional. You see, what they hear, the rainmaker hears, okay, that person's referable because they made me look good. That's validation. Goal number one, worst case scenario. Goal number two, contrast. Activate contrast. If nothing else, just get them to come to their own conclusions that you are elevated.